When I even begin to think of Silent Hill 2 and its soundtrack, I have to start with the song White Noise. This distorted, pitch-changing, muffled-sounding organ fills your brain with fuzz, much like the fuzzy confusion our protagonist James Sunderland must feel. See, James has received a letter from his wife Mary telling him to meet her in their special place. This place is somewhere located in a town called Silent Hill. The problem is, his wife has been dead for 3 years. He's traveled all the way to this town to see if Mary is really alive. Throughout this game, you and James will both reveal the truth behind that letter, and the forgotten memories of the man behind this abyssal reflection. You'll discover James's personal demons, his subconscious want for punishment, and the conduit that is the cursed town and sickly otherworld of Silent Hill. The name, the choice to use it in the intro cutscene, it all mirrors the journey our character has begun. Every step foreshadowed by white noise. Like the static in a radio searching for a signal.
This thing broken?
The comfort you seek in silence as you sleep. The thick veiled fog that blankets that town, where ghostly voices lie. This is musical narration. Shit, I've gotten ahead of myself. Silent Hill 2 is a deeply depressing and dark, no, I seriously cannot see shit in this prison or with these god-awful camera angles, survival horror video game. The atmosphere is oppressive and soul-draining. The story is drenched in surrealism, metaphors, and allegories. All of the characters are tragic, being either psychologically traumatized, disturbed, or disassociated. And the titular town all of this takes place in not only supernaturally draws people with darkness in their hearts to it, but reflects those people's subconscious minds back at them. The gameplay is, it's okay, but let's talk about that sound design because, oh my god! I can finally mention Akira Yamaoka, the game's sound designer. Akira goes out of his way to gore your ears as you're playing. He's responsible for every end you hear in Silent Hill 2. He makes silence feel like a deafening threat. And something as simple as the menu sound effects are the sweetest comfort we get to a relief from the bombardment of audible claustrophobia he throws at you. Why is it called Silent Hill when it's more like, make ya deaf mountain? But above all there is his masterpiece, his magnum opus, the game's soundtrack. Akira Yamaoka himself said, above all, I want to make sure that people feel something listening to my music. And he just, oh my god, he just absolutely fucking did that shit, man. It's incredible to think that Akira not only crafted each and every bit of horrific noise you hear in Silent Hill 2, but that he could beautifully compose to the extent that he did and aptly name each song to truly mirror, unsettle, and tranquilize every emotion he weaved for you to feel as you played it. The soundtrack has a few acoustic melodies that evoke an artful mystery. Powerful, chunky, grunge or rock-inspired tracks that embody the almost literary power of the story and these characters collectively are trying to tell. However, I believe Akira excels at his craft, to where he can take the idea of a character, a world, or a narrative and turn it into music. This isn't just background sound to a video game. I never took a music theory class. I did, however, get acceptable grades in all of my intra-college writing courses and maybe would have elected a music or writing or journalism major, but school stupid. So, this video is not going to be a music theory breakdown or a discussion about Akira's inspirations and use of sample packs, or even why it's factually awesome. Actually, it might be a little bit of that. Instead, this video is more or less a place for me to shed some light on the interpretive nature of Akira's music. Harkening back to what I was originally saying roughly 3 minutes ago, this is musical narration. Akira Yamaoka is a musical storyteller, and that talent truly shines in the soundtrack's main beauty. Ambience. It has so many tracks that are layered with down-tuned instrumentals of spacey, droning rhythmic hums that are otherworldly and somber. In some, he'll add inflections of subtle twinkling xylophone or wavy synth notes to release tension. This track, The Day of Night, is a perfect example of where he does both. There is such a fluid paradox between low and high keys in Akira's music that it leaves each of his songs emotionally ambiguous. You can never pin an exact emotion to what you're listening to, and that's the main attraction to ambience as a genre. It's abstract and meditative. Ambience is a musical canvas that provides each listener to paint their own unique interpretations of whether a track reminds them of a peaceful snowfall, or what the sound of withering away into the empty void of nothingness would be like. Each of his songs' atmospheres feel like they take into account these interpretations while being able to complement what I'll obnoxiously call the metaphorical subtext of a scene, rather than just its visual setting. Take this track for instance, Prisonic Fairy Tale. These numbing pitch drops are so soothing yet leave this sinister aftertaste that they make me feel as if I'm not just being put to rest, but into sleep paralysis, unable to escape.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
I find that interesting that this song plays during the cutscene at the beginning of the game where we hear Mary's voice reading her letter to us, the letter asking James to come to Silent Hill to find her, a dead woman. That sounds like a fairy tale. James's knight in shining armor to Mary's sleeping beauty, and that word prisonic, a Google search will tell you it isn't even a real word, yet its definition is supposed to mean prison-like. This town, like falling asleep, has the power to seduce you into entering it. With its dead ends, collapsed roads, and locked doors, it feels like a prison, meant to make you face your inner demons in the flesh. And just like sleep, they both have the ability to trap and paralyze you inside of a ghostly nightmare. Akira knows how to balance light and dark tones so well he doesn't need to compose a song for creepy location A or sad scene B in F minor to keep you on your toes. This song, A World of Madness, only plays right here in the graveyard at the beginning of the game after meeting Angela for the very first time. I can't describe it to you with any other word than confusing. The words water, float, and wave come to mind, but when I really focus on what sounds like the gonging of thick metal silos, it feels like it could eat holes inside my brain. It sounds like what resting my head in the rainy window of seat 14 in the school bus felt like in 3rd grade. Despite smacking my skull against the glass every time we drove over a pothole, I still thought I could fall back asleep. My point is, before this scene in the graveyard, James has ignored blocked roads, ran through a forest with more smog than Bangladesh where the bushes fucking growled at him, and now meets some strange woman alone in a graveyard who blatantly tells him he should not enter Silent Hill. Every direction James has made has told him to turn around, yet he still moves forward. And instead of a dark, ominous roar to up the creep factor of a horror cliche in what should be one of the most forgettable 10 seconds of the game, Akira masterfully subverted expectations of the scene and made it stand out, making A World of Madness a song to represent both the madness of the town and the madness of our main character. Another thing is that Akira doesn't like to be pigeonholed to a genre. Probably one of his most popular motifs is where he takes his ambience and adds drum tracks to make his groovy signature, Fog Wave. They add an interesting film noirish layer of mystery and curiosity to a soundtrack that already has so much of that inside of it. I have to mention that the Silent Hill series is one big, massive amalgamation of inspired works, one of them being David Lynch's 1990 drama, horror, soap opera, I don't know, I've never seen it, but I've heard it's a good series, Twin Peaks. This bass line is directly inspired by the show's theme, and he even used it in the first Silent Hill game for the cafe scene. I just think that little homage is neat. Also, if he uses the bass line in Silent Hill 3, this would have been a perfect chance to reference it, but I don't know if he does because I haven't played it yet and I don't want to spoil it, but I plan on playing it once I finish this video.
Are you okay?
Yeah. And despite how these Fog Wave tracks seem like they could be out of place from the rest of the soundtrack, Akira still uses the unique quality of these songs for building a unique atmosphere. I'm talking about the theme for Heaven's Night. James ends up at the Heaven's Night strip club after he meets a young woman who claims to work there, named Maria, who also looks so much like his wife he even calls her Mary. She takes him to the club to help him on his pursuit of a young girl who happens to have information about Mary. Upon entering the Heaven's Night strip club and hearing its theme for the first and only time, you'll take notice there isn't a single place in Silent Hill 2 with an atmosphere like this. This song stands out as something we the player and James can both lean on. Heaven's Night is a cozy dance club with an obtuse neon sign of its name illuminated in the colors purple and pink. These colors don't appear like this anywhere else in the game, except in Maria's outfit. Heaven's Night as a location and a song are both a symbolic taunt to James. Why leave the comfort of an empty bar whilst alone with a beautiful woman to venture out into a dark town filled with monsters in search of someone who may not even be there? Mary is dead, but Maria is alive. Look, maybe I have watched too many of the plethora that is Max Darrett in Silent Hill 2 analysis videos. Maybe I've listened to its soundtrack on one too many foggy fall morning drives to work as a
insert mid-20-somethings type job here.
Maybe, in fact, I am reading too much into these songs and I'm blowing smoke up Yamaoka's and the entirety of Team Silent's game developing asses, but I don't know. It's fun. I don't know, I'm sitting here looking out the window to a gloomy apartment setting listening to the soundtrack on repeat. One of the reasons I just adore these songs is because they capture the lonely existentialism that our characters express throughout the game. The same I feel as I type this. The same you have probably felt once upon a time. Its ambience just feels like it was carefully crafted with our characters' real human emotions in mind. His music has an empathy that is like a deep vein to the heart of what makes this game's world feel almost comforting. But then, he ruptures it. Metallic thumping, echoing, chugging, piston squeaking, roaring. Akira's other half of his soundtrack takes his sound design and turns it into an assault on your auditory system. The most visceral sections are industrial concoctions of noise that sound like a manufacturing plant. These songs are the rust left over from whatever peaceful waves or sad waters you could have felt from what you've heard previously. They aren't supposed to be enticing, they're a repulsive weight on your ears. I love them. Akira's talents of connecting world and narrative design are really on display with these tracks because the parts of the game where these pieces are heard are where James is most physically and psychologically vulnerable. The irony is that, after all the chances James had to turn back at that graveyard, as soon as he left it, he has symbolically stepped down into his purgatory. He is making his final steps into Silent Hill itself, and Silent Heaven is heard. Those gonging metal silos from a world of madness sound as if they've been long left to corrode. The holes I felt eating my brain before now feel like they've left only a cavity inside my skull. When James enters the town, he will find clues that Mary may be waiting for him at the Silent Hill Woodside Apartments. Once there, while making his way to the third floor, the sound of imminent doom is heard playing. Ashes and Ghosts is a cacophonous sound of a nausea-inducing ring, scraping, and cat purrs. This song, yes, this is a song, is a haunting echo of James's guilt and executioner. The breath reverberating inside of his helmet through the very brick of the apartment walls as he scrapes his blade behind him. This is Akira's true horror soundtrack. These frightening pieces are but reflections of James' subconscious and the connection he makes between James and Pyramid Head. Blockmine plays as James is chased from the beast in its block-shaped head in the hospital's basement. The song is a fragmented mess of what sounds like the scrape of a lie detector's needle and the thump of a heartbeat giving out under pressure, as if James's world is crashing down. He runs, desperately trying to block his mind. Alright, if you don't know anything about this game or haven't picked up a single thing of what I'm putting down, then let me spell it out for you. Alright.
Pyramid Head is a figment of James' subconscious for smothering his wife in her hospital bed as a mercy killing because she was suffering through a terminal illness. He also represents the repressed sexual frustration he was feeling towards her, and that's why Pyramid Head can be seen right.
Akira knows how he can exploit how we react to sounds. What I love is how his music sounds like it has been purposefully tethered to every single beat of the story. His creativity makes you rethink what a poo-poo diaper scary soundtrack is supposed to sound like. Any numbnut can grab a synth and make it. But when you put it to a story like this with characters who talk like this.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Amongst all the other subtleties of the game's writing, world design, and history of the development of the series. Like during the development of Silent Hill 1, their fucking animator slept for 2 years at Konami while doing all the game's CGI by himself. Like, shit man, I mean Christ, I can't even put pants on some days. I can't help but think Akira must have painstakingly went over each and every clang and bang of a metal pipe so it could have all of this subtextual meaning. And if he didn't, then, well... then I guess this was just one big exercise of fun. That's empty. I could sit here for hours and talk about how this entire soundtrack has a deep context by their title names or musical nuances. Like how Ordinary Vanity plays when we first meet Eddie, a character who is some ordinary fat guy who was bullied in high school for being a fat guy.
Well, maybe he was right.
I could explain in verbose detail how Null Moon is the song used for Maria's introduction into the story, how its violin notes have a nostalgic, hopeful sound to them because they're supposed to represent James's hope that he's at least met someone who looks like his wife, how Null's definition means 0, a moon can represent shadows and femininity, how the song fades out into a twisted darkness because Maria is a null moon. She is Mary's shadow, another figment of James's imagination. But there is one last song I need to mention. This is a song on the soundtrack that has always disturbed me. At the end of the game, when the big twist is revealed that James killed Mary in her hospital bed, Black Fairy is heard playing. As James walks through the hallways of the hotel that he and his wife deemed their special place, its ceiling drips with water almost as if the memory itself is weeping. We're even shown a flashback conversation where we hear Mary's doctor telling James that she doesn't have much longer to live. The song's energy feels like James's complete helplessness he must have felt when he knew he couldn't save her from her illness, not to mention the shame of taking her life for his own selfish reasons. The name is striking when you recall that James had seen moths or fairies in room 202 of the Woodside Apartments, and that Maria even has a tattoo on her stomach of a butterfly. These fairies even attack James during the final boss fight of the game, a twisted hybrid of Maria and Mary in black nun robes suspended inside a metal bed frame that I imagine to be the very hospital bed Mary died in. Moths symbolize death, while butterflies symbolize rebirth. Our duality of a fairy, I suppose. The beginning of the album's version clinks with bottles as if James is drowning himself in alcohol to forget all of this. And it even has this added awful repetitive screech with an already painfully repetitive droning echo. This song is just agony. It's the culmination of all of Akira's efforts on this soundtrack. It's Silent Hill's horror, James's grief. It speaks for itself because it's musical narration.